Hey folks, welcome back to the Workplace Innovator podcast. It's me, your host, Mike P., with another returning guest to this program, someone who was with me on the show maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. It was late 2023 and time is flying by. We can't wait to hear from her today as she is joining us from Los Angeles, California. And she is the associate principal and a workplace design leader at HED, an architecture and engineering firm. And she's got a lot to say about workplace strategy and innovation. So everybody, please welcome her back to the show, Rebecca Swanner. Rebecca, welcome to the Workplace Innovator podcast.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be back.
It's great to have you. So how's everything in LA? As the great Randy Newman once said, I love LA. We love it. You know that one? Come on, I'm a music guy.
I know you are. Everything is awesome. Been a crazy time for me personally, selling one house, moving into another. So
Wow.
and doing construction. So that has been fun, but everything's great. Yep.
Busy times.
Yes.
And you're now a good 3 years plus into your role there at HED?
Yep. Good 3 years plus.
Okay. And you came on my radar again recently. I'm going to talk to you about it here in a second. But it was really cool when someone reached out and said, I have a thought leader from HED who might want to be on your show because she knows a lot about change and workplace strategy. And now with AI infecting, that is an interesting way to say it, influencing everything. AI is everywhere. We're talking about it all the time here on this program. And then I said, could this be Rebecca? And sure enough, it was. So when I reached out, you said, sure, Mike, happy to come back and talk about it. So what is the latest here in 2026 for you and your team?
Yep. So I would say about a year ago, we started really deep diving and researching in earnest this idea of how AI is radically transforming the workplace. When we looked around, I was hearing so much on the news about here's how work is changing. And I just felt like no one came forward and said, okay, here's an actionable framework, right? A design response. If work is changing, well, theoretically, the workplace should change. And I wasn't finding an actionable framework. And so I reached out to my team and I said, I think we need to create it. And I think we need to study this in a pretty in-depth way. So that's what I've been busy on.
Okay, we're going to get into it. And I love that. The practical, actionable insights, the approach that my audience of facility management and real estate leaders can, get something to take away here. And we're going to talk about all of it. But Rebecca, you and I have still not met in real life. We had that great conversation back on the show. I think it was episode 285. So that was over 100 episodes ago. We're now in the early 400s, which is crazy at the time of this publication. And it's been a couple years. Things keep changing. In fact, I re-listened to our previous conversation. We talked a lot about change management. We talked a lot about hybrid work and workplace strategy and the human experience.
We talked about upskilling. So we were ahead of our time because now
we did, but we didn't mention AI. We didn't mention AI, did we?
Upskilling, though. No, we didn't mention AI, but we did talk about upskilling, which I was pleased to hear.
Okay, so tie it together because upskilling leads us to need to understand the practical implications of AI, and it sounds like you're bringing it to the marketplace.
I would say AI triggers a greater need for upskilling because it is absorbing parts of different roles, and therefore people need to pivot in their roles or grow or adapt. And so we are consistently upskilling our staff.
Okay. I like that. Well, again, we'll get into some of the details about your research and some of the things you're sharing with your clients. But Rebecca, we talked a little bit about music at the beginning. Randy Newman, I'm coming to LA. Speaking of loving LA, I'm coming in the fall to Anaheim, which is right next door. And I'm going to spend some time there. And we've got an IFMA World Workplace event. Although you're more a Cornet person, right?
I am more of a Cornet person, although I've thought about, especially when IFMA is in my backyard, I will probably need to go. I'll probably submit to speak. I was just at the TED conference in Vancouver week before last, which was probably one of the most brain expanding conferences I've ever been to. But yes, definitely Cornet.
So Vancouver, straight north into Canada,
Yes.
Canada, beautiful Vancouver. I've never been, but I'd like to be there someday. You were posting about this TED conference. This is the big TED stage, right?
Yes.
This is where they
Yep.
record not TEDx little event.
Nope.
This is the
main
main
stage.
one.
The main
Okay.
stage. Mm-hmm.
And did you speak, or were you just part of a audience? What were you doing?
Audience, just a participant there at the conference. But it's just an amazing. Really, it's in any case, it's a luxury where you take an entire week where you disconnect from your project work and you just think big picture about where the world is going. It was not design focused. It was incredibly interdisciplinary. I was having dinner with, heads of technology, right? People that are in development, people that are in investing, all different walks of life, people who had careers I'd never even heard of before. I met a woman who specializes in pricing strategy, which is incredibly relevant right now, because how do organizations price services if they are leveraging AI, right? Like, how does that change?
Sure.
So it was really, really incredible. Yeah.
Well, all I saw, again, you posted a lot of videos, but the ones of you speaking multiple languages,
Yes.
obviously using AI, it was seamless. Rebecca, it was like I couldn't tell it wasn't you talking. The only reason I knew it wasn't is because I don't think you speak all those languages, but it was so real. What was that all about?
So that was a new technology they were piloting, which really opens the door for communication. This idea of speaking to someone in their native language. So if you were interviewing me right now, you could be interviewing me in your language, and I would be hearing you speaking my language. And it's not, I asked, is this immediate? They said no. There's about a 2-minute delay. But it's just absolutely remarkable, right? The type of connections you can make with someone and how it feels when someone addresses you in your native language with the correct accent.
And you were recording a video in English, I assume, and then
Yes.
it would change your mouth movements, but the fluidity of it and the way you were speaking the second language with the mouth matching perfectly, I couldn't tell the difference. So we're
and
to
that's
that
why
level.
I put it up to my network. I encouraged anyone who speaks those languages natively, let me know how my pronunciation is. It doesn't matter if I think it's believable. I want to know if it looks authentic to them, because that's what's really interesting to me.
Did you get any feedback from that? Did you hear?
Yeah,
from anybody?
I had in Spanish. There were a couple people who replied in Spanish.
Okay.
I don't know as many people who speak German and some of the other languages.
And Mandarin and Dutch. You were speaking all these languages. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Well, that's right there, a great example of why we need to upskill, and these tools, technologies will be useful to us as we continue to stay relevant in our world of managing the workplace and the built environment and caring for the people, right? We want to have those human connections. That's always been your priority when we've talked in the past. You gave a great quote, and I wrote it down, Rebecca, because I didn't want to get it wrong. And I wanted to kick things off talking about where we are today compared to almost 3 years ago, when you said, I think it was a Cornet's presenter, Peter Sheehan, said the crucial shift required for agility is to compress your time to acceptance. And you were talking about this in terms of embracing change and new ways of working and new strategies. And the best way to shift successfully is to get there faster. Have you done that successfully over these last couple of years?
I think so. And I think, my team is always interested in people's ability and appetite for change. And so as part of this AI research initiative, we did our own market research study across the United States, polled a lot of people, survey, and we found the data showed that the majority of workers in America are ready for spaces that are responsive, office spaces that are responsive. Now, that assumes that there's the proper governance in place, right? And it's done in a transparent way. But that was really interesting, not just the appetite, but for the comfort level, right? In having a workspace that is responsive and maybe even empathetic is fascinating, that we're there already.
Tell me more. Yeah, what does it mean to have a responsive workspace?
Yep. So it's interesting because a lot of the technology already exists. It's just about connecting the technology, right? So I've got wearable tech. You probably have wearable tech. So at any point in time, right, it knows what my heart rate is. Am I stressed? How many steps? Did I sleep well last night? All these different things. So if you take that data, everyone says it's an AI conversation. It's AI, but it's also data. These two things are intricately linked. You have to give AI the proper data. So if we were to share with our workspaces, share with the architecture of the space, all of our data, how I'm feeling in this moment, in this day, what I need to accomplish in this day, who I need to meet with this, all this data, and also my personal preferences. I'm always freezing. I'm wearing a jacket. My husband in the other room is wearing a polo and he's perfectly fine. So all these different factors, if you give space that information, how can space suggest and guide and adapt, right? And refine so that you have the right environment for the right thing you're doing. And so when we met a couple years ago, we talked about this idea of activity-based design, and you move to different places depending on what you're doing. And that might still be the case because architecture is fixed. So you may have to move depending on your task, but it's also possible that as we move further on, throughout the years, the workplace itself will morph and respond more and more, if that makes sense. And also monitoring us as humans. So if we look at humans' ability to focus, right, we know that's really staying in that deep focus mode is really capped at 90 to 120 minutes. But we get carried away. So what if your workspace said, hey there, Mike, I'm checking all your readings, and you're also, as a human, I know you can only do this for 120 minutes, and it's time to take a break. Here's what I suggest for you based on what then replenishes your optimal performance. You have two choices. Let me know. I'll book a space for you.
Cool. So you're not saying this is not new technology necessarily. It's the people are now, based on your research, ready to be open to this idea of an intelligent workspace and technology infusion to the point where they are willing to give up maybe some of their data, personal data, information to better align with the place in which they're working. Is that what you're finding?
Yep. And connecting existing technologies is something I'm really interested in right now.
Yeah. And that's what we love hearing on this show, is that there are people willing to take that leap and then get the data and see how it's working and then share it with the rest of us. So really, really fascinating. So dive a little deeper into some of these posts I've also seen you share from. If anybody was interested, go to LinkedIn, follow Rebecca. I'll leave a link in the show notes to make it easy. And then there's the HED Intelligence in Place site or page that really shares a lot of this research regarding, spaces that respond and what comes next and a lot of these different focus deficit. Tell me about that. What is the focus deficit and why is AI raising the cognitive bar?
Yep. So if you look at the type of work that AI absorbs, it is volume, right? It's a lot of volume, but it's low cognitive load work. It's not the type of deep thinking, strategic work, creative work that humans are still going to be doing. So if I'm not spending, typically in a work day, gosh, I probably spend half my work day responding to emails. But that's really easy to do. It's not cognitively demanding at all.
Right.
I can do it when I'm exhausted. I can do it in the middle of the night if I can't sleep. It's not a problem. So if AI is absorbing that and I'm trying to spend more of my day operating at a much higher level, right, doing that really cognitively demanding work that only humans can do, my focus needs to be protective. And here's the interesting thing, is that focus in particular is typically seen as a matter of personal discipline. Like you have the ability to focus or you don't. But what research shows is it's actually incredibly environmentally sensitive. And we can explain this in a very silly way. So I have a home office. I also work at our office in downtown Los Angeles. And on the days I'm working from home, one day I was trying to write one of these research insights with my colleague, Sarah, and my husband went outside my window with a weed whacker because his office is on the same side of the house. He saw something that was bothering him and he thought he would just take care of it. And I actually took a video because it made my point so well. And so I couldn't focus. And that's a silly example, but it's a lot more, it's obvious, but it's also things that you might not like. Acoustics are pretty obvious, but even air quality and your peripheral, right? So protecting your periphery from movement, things like that really help people stay in that deep focus. And those are all things that we can control, right, with the design of the space.
Yeah, it's really interesting Rebecca. And I talked to a guest not too long ago, a book author, organizational psychologist, I believe, and she was sharing her concept of what she called thought load. It's not about our workload. We can do a lot of different tasks and have great productivity, and we can measure all that. But in the world today, with the information overload and the cognitive load and the higher, deeper thought that's required to do our jobs, it's when we get stress and other things going on in our lives that disrupt us, the weed whacker, the other,
Right.
the baby crying or something like that, that all of a sudden your thought load becomes an obstacle to your ability to be your best self. And these are these great understandings that we're hearing about. Her name's Dr. Leanne Davey, by the way, if anybody wants to go back and listen to her episode. But this is great. And it's something that is really useful to my team who are making decisions regarding where we go from here. So put yourself in their shoes, 2026, late spring, heading into the summer. Although in LA, do you even notice the difference? It's just like 70 and sunny.
Endless
and sunny.
summer. Endless summer.
Southern California. Jealous here. Jealous guy. But you're out there talking to clients. We've moved along, here is it 6 years post-COVID experience. I mean, it was kind of amazing how long ago that was, but it's all changed how we approach things. But are you optimistic that organizations are getting it and understanding some of these intricacies and then applying it to their physical built environment?
I am. And I think what brings me optimism is that we've had some amazing clients that have allowed us to test and iterate. So I would say if you want to get it right, don't assume you're going to get it 100% on the first try, because that's not realistic, because things are changing so quickly. Your own employee base is changing so quickly. So we have one really large national client, and, say they want to lease 4 new floors. We'll start with a quarter of a floor, build it out, test it, kick the wheels, have a team move in there, see what's working, what's not working, refine, iterate, and then move everyone in. So I think that's the best way to do it, is to pilot and experiment.
Yes. Yeah. And it's okay to fail. Make the effort. If it's not working, pivot, move quickly. And what was it? What was the quote I started with? Be quick to adapt, or to speed to acceptance of that
radical
failure
acceptance.
Or that radical acceptance. I love that. Do you have any other quotes for us? I always like to ask for inspirational quotes. I know you live by a lot of them, but anything else come to mind? I forgot to ask you that question.
I would say focus on outcomes over occupancy. I'm so sick of the current metrics of how people are measuring success. When clients come to us and they say, okay, here's my problem. My people are in 2 days a week and I want them in 3 days a week. And I always say, why? Like, why? To what end? Yeah. What is important to you? Is it important to you to see people in your office Is it important for you to see people in your office a certain number of days or minutes per week? Or is it important to you to unlock innovation, right? To increase loyalty? What is it you actually want? Because I actually don't think you care about if people are in their seats or not. I think we're talking about the wrong metrics. So that's what I would say. Focus on outcomes.
Over occupancy. Is that a Rebecca Swanner original? Or did you get that somewhere else?
I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. To be totally honest, it's hard for me to tell, because I do so much reading that sometimes what I've heard, what I've read, and what I've thought start to blend together into a giant spaghetti in my brain.
That's fantastic. And that crash, was that your husband? Was he weed whacking again?
No, I'm really short, and I have a footstool thing that I got excited and I knocked it over.
That's okay. There's people banging outside my window, and I've got all kinds of noises going in. It's the world in which we operate, everybody. It's all good. It's all fun. Yeah. Well, I got to go back to music real quick. I didn't give you a chance. Okay. Do you have anything on your playlist here in 2026 that you want to share with my audience?
Music. Okay. So I don't know if it's lame, but Billy Joel was my first concert.
And
the
Piano Man.
and I love that he's an amazing lyricist. When I was in high school, I remember I went to my history teacher, modern world history, with the printed lyrics of "We Didn't Start the Fire," and I
Oh
said,
yeah.
"There are some references in here that you didn't teach me about, and I want to make sure I know what every single one of these references is, because some of them were before my time." So I like Billy
Same
Joel,
here.
but
I did the same with my uncle. I shared that list with my
amazing.
uncle. We listened to the song and I said, "You lived through this stuff. Tell me about it," which is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah.
Better
So
than
Billy
school.
Joel, yeah,
Okay. I love it.
yeah.
And
But
he's
I'm
still
more when
going. I
it.
know he's had some health issues, but
I
he's
know,
still
I know.
performing not as often as he once was with the residency at, I think, Madison Square Garden came to an end, but
Yes,
always on my radar. In fact, when I go back and listen to his early stuff, did you see the documentary about
I
his life?
did. I did.
Man, that was amazing. Never
He's
knew he was in other bands and he was like part of that 60s early rock
he's
scene
the
and stuff.
underdog. He's
Yeah,
a total
wild.
underdog. I love it. Okay,
Amazing.
but see, you're all about
Yes.
music. If you said your favorite artist, I would pick poets because I'm an architect. I love sestinas. Right. I'm a secret closet poet. Well, not so secret anymore, but no one gets to read my poetry. So I would pick poets
Wow.
over
Okay.
over
Over
songwriters.
singers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always assume people think that when I say, who's your favorite artist? It's in the context of music, a musical artist. But yes,
Yeah. No, I would pick
poets,
poets. Yep.
painters, impressionists, we're open to all types of
Yep.
creative people here on the Workplace Innovator podcast. Rebecca, the time is going by fast. It's escaping us. I do want to ask you about that name of the show. I didn't do this last time, but I often like to kind of get some insight into what you're thinking about and how it might help my audience. Because if they're tuned into this show, they want to be a workplace innovator. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase? What does it take in 2026?
I mean, I think it takes looking at work in a different way. And I think it's understanding that the boundaries of what defines work, I mean, post COVID, they started to disappear. And now they're really disappearing. If you think about what it will mean to work 10 years from now, it might look completely different and it might be even more integrated just into our general lives. I mean, AI, hybrid schedules, asynchronous collaboration, like this whole 9 to 5 thing is basically dead. That strict boundary doesn't really exist in the same way it did for previous generations. And so I
Right.
think as far as innovation goes, like the prerequisite is just to understand that the boundaries of work are getting more and more broken down. And I think that's really interesting. And I think we need to design space and also from an operations perspective, think about work and life as sort of one holistic thing.
I like it. I like it a lot. That's very well said, Rebecca. All right, final question. Got to ask you for some practical advice or a final thought or takeaway. What action steps would you offer my audience of FM and workplace leaders as we head into the future of the workplace together?
Yep. So I would say before, my realm, my world is all about the physical space of where work happens. So I would say before you even, if you're getting ready to do an office move, before you even think about how many square feet do I need, how many square feet per person, where are we going to locate this office, just stop and have a very big picture, high level conversation about what are the outcomes, what is the highest and best use of my people. Right? How do I want to change behavior? How can I use space to influence behavior? And just think about it really big picture before you deep dive into the sort of the logistics of the conversation. You have to know what you want the outcome to be and what are the metrics for success. And make sure, double check your metrics. Make sure the things you're measuring are actually the things that are important to you.
There it is, everybody. Focus on outcomes over occupancy. Rebecca Swanner, amazing. Well, I hope to see you in Anaheim. Come on,
Yes.
Come over and go to Disneyland for me.
I'm writing it down.
Disneyland. What is it? California Adventure.
Yeah.
Disneyland Park. Have you been recently? Is it like something you just do on a spur of the moment?
I went a couple years ago. I actually took my kids and they passed out by 4:00 because it was too exciting for them. And my husband and I, we looked at each other. We said, you know what? They're asleep. We could leave now and they're not going to know we didn't stay all day. And we said, yeah, let's go. We left.
All right. Well, big kid here, DJ Mike P will find his way to Disneyland in November, before or after IFMA's World Workplace. I hope I can see you there. And if not there, somewhere else we will meet in real life. But again, great great insight, great strategy, great ideas, and great inspiration. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for being once again on the Workplace Innovator podcast. And thank you, everybody, for watching if you are on YouTube, and listening to us if you are on the other normal podcast channels. Either way, I hope you are finding something of value in these conversations. And if so, please share this podcast with a colleague or a friend, anyone who might like to join us as we continue on our journey to encourage and inspire you to be a workplace innovator. Peace out, everybody.